Gridiron Central is sponsored by Georgia Northwestern Technical College, Riverside Automotive Group.
Welcome to Gridiron Central. We have 3 weeks of the regular season left to go. It's the Wednesday preview show. Alongside me, Matt Davis from 95.7 The Ridge. Fist bump time. Script that one out just a little bit. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. We're going to try to fly through our games a little bit faster than normal because if we have enough time, I want to go into some playoff scenarios because, yes, with 3 weeks left to go in the regular season, we're all about talking about the playoffs, who has a chance to get in, who might have a chance to get in, who's definitely in, and who is probably definitely out. So we'll probably talk about that at the end of the show. We'll start real quick right now. Cartersville, still undefeated after the beatdown at Gordon Central last week, travels to play at Daresville. 98% of our You Pick 'em users believe the Purple Hurricanes remain undefeated. Matt, what do you think?
I like the pick this week for the You Pick 'em users. You know, Daresville is still a pretty young team. They do have a good offense. They can score some points. I think that when you look at what happened with the Daresville last week, that's got to raise a red flag to you. I mean, they gave up a lot of points to Sonoraville, and let's face it, Sonoraville has really struggled this year. Now, granted, Daresville picked up the win, but going up against the Cartersville Purple Hurricanes and going up against Sonoraville this year, two entirely different situations. You're looking at a team that's undefeated. Last week, they held off the very stout offensive attack from Gordon Central, better than any other team, I believe, has done all year long. And I think that says a lot about the defense that they're putting up on the field. And they've played some other good teams as well this year. So I think Cartersville, hands down, should win this game. Daresville's offense will pick up some points. They may make it interesting, but I think you're going to see a game like you saw last week with Gordon Central, maybe even a little bit worse. Because I just think defensively, Daresville doesn't have it as put together as perhaps Gordon Central does.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head here. Daresville, the last 3 or 4 games, is averaging giving up over 35 points a game, a couple of 50-point. I mean, the Daresville offense good, young team. The defense is kind of porous against a team like Cartersville. That leads to a lot of points. Daresville may score some, not enough. Cartersville wins, probably wins big. Moving on, Calhoun at Armurchie. 98% of our You Pick 'em users believe the Yellow Jackets will win this game. Matt, any surprises on the 98% there?
Moving on. No, I'm just kidding. No, really, man. Not a whole lot I can say about this one. Calhoun has a very, very solid team offensively. They're putting up big numbers. We picked this game several weeks ago. We said that once they got into region play, kiss it goodbye, Calhoun wins every game. I maintain that in this one. Armurchie is a young team. They have some issues on offense getting into the end zone, and that has stayed with them all season long. They're maturing in some ways, but they can't put together 4 quarters of solid football. They've not done it a single game this year. I think that, you know, it wouldn't even matter if they played their best game. There's no way they're going to get past a team like Calhoun. This is going to be ugly. Running clock second half.
Calhoun hasn't lost a region game in over a decade. This doesn't become the first one Calhoun wins. I say they'll be 10-0 in the season when they head into the playoffs. Moving on, Cass at Cedartown. 83% of our You Pick 'em users believe the Bulldogs will right the ship, and they must if they want a chance at the playoffs. Matt, can Cedartown beat Cass?
You know, I think they can, but they're going to have to play very well in this game. And Nick Chubb is going to have to come up really big. And I don't think that should be much of a problem for him because he's got 1,973 yards on 219 carries. He scored 29 touchdowns this year. You're going to get a big dose of Chubb. But I maintain, you know, I mean, looking out through the rest of the season, when you look back on their schedule, I thought they'd be in a position right now where they would be, you know, for sure having a playoff spot. The situation doesn't look as bright for them right now. They lost a couple of games that we expected them to win, and it all boils down to their whole game plan is Nick Chubb. They've got to diversify that, or they're not going to have success against the teams that they have remaining on the schedule. So I think that Cedartown will find a way to win this game, but I think it will be a close game.
I'm completely at a loss for what to do with the Cedartown Bulldogs. Nick Chubb having a phenomenal season. Their defense hasn't played very well. The special teams hasn't played very well. Other than Nick Chubb, the offense hasn't played very well. I'm not so sure Cedartown can even win this game. Of course, if they lose this game, they're completely out of the playoff picture. No chance at all. You know what? I'm going to pick the Bulldogs somewhat reluctantly because they haven't shown me in the past 3 or 4 weeks that they can win this game. Cass, good start to the season. They're 0 for region play so far. They're going to be hungry in this one. They really, again, mathematically have a chance, but not a very good one at the playoffs. I'm going to say Cedartown wins, but it would not surprise me at all to find out that Cass wins in the end. Moving on, Pepperell, 100% of our You Pick 'em users believe the Dragons will beat the Chattooga Indians on the road. Matt, what do you think?
I think Pepperell's going to win this game hands down. I mean, I've said this all along. Pepperell's the number 2 team in Region 7 AA, and I'll maintain that. I think they're going to run the table the rest of the way. And one of the reasons for that is they have a bigger roster than most of these teams have. They're stronger. They've got more experience, and all those things lend themselves to having some success against some of these younger teams. And speaking of younger teams, Chattooga is just that. They've got a lot of inexperience on this team, and at times it really shows, like against Coosa last week. I was really impressed with Coosa's performance against Chattooga last week, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail later. But in this game, I just think Pepperell's going to be too much. I mean, Chattooga's got 2 speedsters, Dickerson and Sims, that you really got to watch out for, and a couple other guys. But at the end of the day, I think Pepperell should have no problem stopping them.
I'm going to agree with you on this one. And here's the big thing. I talked to Chattooga's coach a couple weeks ago after they beat Armurchie, and he said, what we have to do is control our own destiny and win out. Well, Chattooga hasn't done that. Is Chattooga good enough to give Pepperell a game? Yes, they are. Can they put 4 quarters together? That's the big question. Pepperell, on the other hand, should be a heavy favorite coming into this game. Do I think they're going to lose? No, I think Pepperell's going to win. I don't know if they're going to win big. I think Chattooga could keep it close. You just never know after the loss to Coosa. I don't know. Is Chattooga going to rally and come back? Because they have to win this game if they want playoffs. Obviously, Pepperell, they just need to keep on keeping on. They're in a great spot, number 2 in the region right now. We may talk about that later. I agree. Pepperell wins this game. Darlington at Mount Zion. 100% of our UPickem users believe the Tigers win yet again. Matt, any reason to think otherwise?
Well, I think Darlington's got a good offense led by quarterback Brad Butler. We all know that. They put up some pretty big numbers against Gordon Lee last week, shut them down. That really actually surprised me. I thought that would be one of the games of the week. I thought that would be a very interesting game. It was more or less anything but, and you were there, so I'm sure you'll add to that here in just a couple of moments. Mount Zion, they've had a couple of surprising wins over the course of the season, so maybe they'll be a little bit more of an opponent than people suspect they will be. But at the end of the day, I still think that Darlington's going to put a little bit more offense on the board than Mount Zion will be able to do.
Yeah, the thing about the Darlington-Gordon Lee game last week that I saw was, there were bits and pieces where Darlington's offense looked really good, and there were bits and pieces where they're still trying to get everything together there. What was impressive was the defense just flat out shut Gordon Lee down. Now, granted, you knew Gordon Lee was pretty much going to run. Now, Gordon Lee did hit a couple of big passes, but they couldn't score any points. I'm not sure they even got in the red zone more than once the entire night. That's how good the defense played. That being said, for Mount Zion, that doesn't look good. Darlington's going to put 28 points on you without too much of a problem. They're not going to let them score more than about 10. I think Darlington wins this one without a problem. And one note, Darlington is currently ranked number 2 in the GHSA Class A private school power rankings, meaning that they would get a phenomenal seed into the GHSA Class A private school playoffs if the season were to stop today. Of course, those power rankings can move up and down. For the next 3 weeks, we'll have to wait and see. One last game to talk about before commercial. Sonoraville, the Phoenix, with only 1 win on the season, traveled to play Gordon Central, who only has 1 loss on the season. 100% of our UPickem fans believe the Warriors get back on the winning track over the Phoenix. Matt?
Well, Gordon Central had a tough weekend last weekend. They went and they played Cartersville, and I think everybody going into it knew that would be a tough game. I was kind of on the fence about that when I picked Gordon Central because I really wanted to take a chance on their offense showing up and doing a really good job. And I wouldn't say they didn't show up. I mean, they were able to score some points on a really good defense, but just not enough. And so in this game, I think Gordon Central is going to score a lot of points against Sonoraville. Teams have not had trouble doing that this year. Sonoraville's really had a down year. Last week really kind of surprised me that they were able to put together enough offense to score what they did. They scored 39 points on Adairsville last week, I believe. Yeah, they scored a lot, which really kind of surprised me. I don't think that's going to happen in this game. I think that Gordon Central is really, really going to put the hammer down and beat Sonoraville pretty badly.
Well, I think one of the key things in all of this, remember, Gordon Central was undefeated until they lost to Cartersville last week, and Cartersville won by a few touchdowns and kind of won running away with it. Every season, good teams have a game like that where, they get their backs down, something bad happens, and Gordon Central just did not have the answers to what is a very good Cartersville team. Gordon Central is a very good team, too. Sonoraville, they're going to be able to score a few points. Gordon Central's going to be able to score a lot more points, but Gordon Central has a defense this year. Sonoraville might be in the game for a little while, but not for long. Gordon Central wins this game. They're looking very strong as a playoff contender, possibly even get that home playoff game in the first round. Right after the commercial break, we have 3 or 4 other games to talk about, and then we'll probably move on into the playoff situations. Stick around.
Begin your future at Georgia Northwestern Technical College. We offer degrees, diplomas, and certificates in over 200 programs of study. Choose a career in business, health, industrial, or public service. With the flexibility of day, evening, and online classes at any of our 5 campus locations, getting your education at GNTC has never been more convenient. There are many financial aid options available, including student loans. Apply now. Georgia Northwestern Technical College. Your college, your town, your future.
Welcome back to Gridiron Central. It's the Wednesday preview show. We've talked about some of our games, got a few more to talk about. We start back with Gordon Lee at Tryon. 93% of our UPick'em fans believe Tryon is going to win this game. I'm going to disagree. I think Gordon Lee's a better team than Tryon is at this point. I think the defense is better. I think the offense is better. I think Gordon Lee gets this win. Matt, what do you think?
You know what, man? This is one of the ones that I was kind of on the fence about, but I think Tryon's got some problems. They've had some issues. I think a couple of weeks ago they had some players that were suspended. I'm not really sure what the story on that is, and they've had a hard time. And for a while there, I think everybody was ready to jump on the Bulldog bandwagon, so to speak, and just things have not gone as well as people thought they were going to go. Gordon Lee, on the other hand, they were dealt a big loss last week by Darlington, got shut out. I think they're going to be on fire in this game. They want to redeem themselves and pick up a win. So I'm going to go with you on this one. I'm going to go with Gordon Lee.
And per the power rankings, both of these teams definitely need this win to help them in the power rankings. Gordon Lee is still in the top 16. I believe they're 8th or 9th. Tryon is outside the 16, meaning if the season were to end today, they would not make the playoffs. Moving on, Rockmart at Douglas. 95% of our UPick'em users believe the Yellow Jackets will win this game. Last week, a huge win over Central Carrollton. I'm going to jump on the Rockmart bandwagon for 1 week because they have to win this game. This is a huge game for them. Of course, whenever I pick Rockmart, usually the opposite thing happens. Matt, what do you think?
I think the same thing. Whenever I pick Rockmart, the opposite happens. Whenever I pick against them, the opposite happens. Last week I picked Central Carrollton. I thought they would win that game, and they didn't. Rockmart manhandled them more or less. So I'm going to pick Rockmart in this game. Douglas is 1-6, 0-4 in the region. They've really struggled, so I got to go with Rockmart, but who knows?
Definitely so. We'll see what the Yellow Jackets do. Moving on, Lithia Springs travels to play Rome. 98% of our UPick'em users believe the Wolves will get another region win. Of course, last week they lost to East Paulding, giving them their second loss in region play. I don't see anything in this game any indication here. Unless Rome doesn't come to play, Rome wins this game. That's my pick.
I'm with you. And, of course, the loss last week, and unless I'm badly mistaken, was one of the biggest margins that Rome has ever lost by. That was just a beatdown. They want to overcome that. They're playing up against the team they should win. Yeah. They're going to be ready for this game, and I think they'll pick up the win.
We're in agreement here. Young American Christian to Unity Christian, 100%. If my math is correct, that's everybody. All of our UPick'em users believe the Lions will get another big region win. I'm going to agree with this. I think Unity is doing that wonderful thing they do at the end of the season when they start peaking, looking a little bit ahead to the playoffs. Not past this game, but Unity has, if they beat Young American Christian, has a great potential to be the number 2 seed. Matt, what do you think?
Oh, Young American Christian has really struggled this year. Unity, as you said, are getting better, and I think one thing that Coach Curtis is good at is once he gets his team where he wants them to be, is keeping them there. Yes. And that is really the key. You can't let their heads get too high in the sky where they're not paying attention to the next opponent. Joe Curtis will have none of that. It's not going to happen. So they'll be ready for this game, and I think Unity Christian will pick up the win.
Definitely so. One last game to talk about before we go into the playoff possibilities. Model at Coosa. 67% of our UPick'em users believe the Blue Devils will pick up the win. This is our UPick'em tiebreak game. Our score potential, Model 20, Coosa 18. So although 67% of our UPick'em users believe the Blue Devils will win, they think it's going to be a really close game.
Really?
Matt, what do you think?
No, I think it will be a close game, but in the end, I'm going to go against what the UPick'em users are saying here. I think Coosa is going to win this game, and I may not have said that unless I would have seen the last game that Coosa played in. They're a pretty good football team. And, all along, I hadn't said a whole lot of nice things about this team, and that's just because I hadn't seen them on the field. But when you go back and look at Coosa's schedule, the first 3 games were AAA teams. Then they played Pepperell Calhoun. They were 0-5. It's hard to say good things about a team when they've lost that many games to start the season. Well, now, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to predict they run the table the rest of the way. They are a pretty good football team. And one of the things that really stands out to me about this Coosa team is how aggressive their defense is. Yes. They shut Chattooga down all night long. And then offensively, of course, they've got Denver Penny. One of the things that's really interesting about Coosa the last few years, the last 3 quarterbacks they've had have been pretty good quarterbacks.
Yes.
And this is no exception. Denver Penny can run the football. He can throw it pretty well. He's got some receivers that are catching the ball pretty decently this year. I'm going with Coosa in this game. And, you know, it might be a close game, but then again, if Coosa plays their A game, it might not be close.
Well, you know, here's my thing. I've seen Model play a couple of games. I haven't seen Coosa since the preseason. The one thing I noticed about Coosa in the preseason is they were very young. I like the defense. Again, I did like the variety they had on offense. You know, I think I'm going to have to agree with you here. I'm going to go against the UPick'em users. I think Coosa's going to win this game. I think that, you know, a couple of weeks ago, going into the break in Region 7 AA when they didn't play that week, I said Chad Perry and his coaching staff, what they do over the next 2 weeks is going to really determine how this team does. Since then, they're 0-2. Now, granted, excuse me, they're 2-0. Wow, messed up that one. That's what live TV will do to you sometimes. This game is huge. If Coosa wins this game and then wins out, they are the number 3 seed in the Region 7, going into the AA playoffs out of Region 7 AA. Model, obviously, they win this game, they'll be the number 3 seed. So, or more than likely, they'll be the number 3 seed. There's still a potential down the road for a problem there. But you know what? I'm going to go with Coosa just simply because it's at Coosa, and I think they're playing a little bit better football than Model is right now. We're going to go to commercial again. When we come back, we're going to talk playoffs and give you a quick rundown of how we think of how things are starting to shape up for what we can see in the first round of the playoffs. Stick around.
Begin your future at Georgia Northwestern Technical College. We offer degrees, diplomas, and certificates in over 200 programs of study. Choose a career in business, health, industrial, or public service. With the flexibility of day, evening, and online classes at any of our 5 campus locations, getting your education at GNTC has never been more convenient. There are many financial aid options available, including student loans. Apply now. Georgia Northwestern Technical College. Your college, your town, your future.
Welcome back to the show. We've made our picks for this Friday night. We're going to talk a little bit about playoff scenarios. We're going to start in Class 5A, Region 5, where the Rome Wolves reside. Right now, Allatoona and East Paulding are both undefeated. They have both beaten Rome High. They're sitting at number 1 and number 2. Well, tied for first, actually. These two teams play the last game of the season. Rome is a solid number 3, having beaten all the other teams with winning records other than East Paulding and Allatoona. As long as Rome wins out with Villa Rica, Lithia Springs, and Woodland, they are definitely the number 3 seed. Even if they were to lose one of those, they would probably still get the number 3 seed. That means a road game in the first round of the playoffs. Matt, with Villa Rica, Lithia Springs, and Woodland, you think they got it?
I think they do. And, you know, one of the things I do want to add is, you know, I would love to see that Allatoona East Paulding game.
Yes.
Because these are the two best teams in the region. Nobody could argue against that. That is going to be a heck of a matchup.
That should be a very, very interesting game. And, of course, I think that both Allatoona and East Paulding, depending on the way the brackets line up, might end up with a nice little path there. Either one of those teams might be able to make a run. We'll have to wait and see who Rome's opponent might be. Right now, it could be Flowery Branch, which would be a very difficult first-round opponent. Moving on to Class 4A, Region 7, where 7A, their subdivided region. In this side of the bracket, we have Cedartown, who's currently 0-2 in the region. Really, Cedartown, they're going to have to win their games and then get some help. They have games against Cass and Gilmer left. If Cedartown can beat those two teams and Gilmer loses to River Ridge, then Cedartown should have a chance for a play-in game to get to the playoffs. There's no chance at the region title, but you know, at least that chance. Matt, can Cedartown win their last 2 games?
I don't know. I think it's very unfortunate that Cedartown's in the position that they're in, and they kind of dug themselves a hole, and it's never a good situation when, even if you do your best, you stand a chance of not making it if other teams can't help you out, and whatever the situation may be. So I don't know, man. This one, it really puzzles me. I don't know what's going to end up happening. But I root for the Cedartown Bulldogs to make the playoffs, but we'll see.
It'll be very interesting. Obviously, you got to win and get some help to get in. Moving on to Class 4A Region 7B, the other side of this region, Ridgeland sits at 3-0. They only have to beat Lafayette and Heritage left. Both those teams have losing records. I think Ridgeland is your sub-region champ. Will play for the region title. Other teams to look at: Southeast Whitfield and Dalton are both at 2-1. Northwest Whitfield is 1-2, but their losses are to Dalton and Ridgeland, so there could be a battle royale there. I think Ridgeland's the class of this region. I think they're going to end up being region champ. I think this is a team that could go far. What do you think, Matt?
I agree with you totally. I mean, there's prospects all over the field for these guys. They've got a lot of good players in the backfield offensively. They've got some marquee defensive players as well, and they are definitely on their own, in a league of their own, I believe, in that region. They're awesome. Moving
on to Class AAA Region 5, Cartersville now 4-0, sits atop the region. They still have Adairsville, Sonoraville, and Ringgold left. I don't see Cartersville falling in any of those games. I think that they went out. Gordon Central's at 3-1. They still have to play Sonoraville, Adairsville, and North Murray. Adairsville at 3-1 has Cartersville, Gordon Central, and Coahulla Creek left. Ringgold at 2-2, LFO at 2-2. We got some teams in the mix here. Basically, my general feeling, Cartersville's going to be 1. I think Gordon Central's going to be your number 2. I'm going to say Adairsville's actually going to be 4, and I think Ringgold may, nope. I think LFO will probably sneak up and grab the number 3 spot, move Adairsville to 4. What do you think?
Yeah, the problem with Adairsville right now is they've got, their biggest games here at the end. They still have Cartersville and Gordon Central, both teams that I think will beat Adairsville more than likely. And then Coahulla Creek, I'm not really sure. I don't have a whole lot of information about them.
Yeah.
I think Adairsville probably should win that game. But those first 2, I think, are real questionable. So that might change the situation as you go down the line.
Definitely so. We're looking at probably 2 or 3 of our local teams making the playoffs in that region, although I believe Cartersville is going to be a region champ. Moving on, only one of our local teams in this region, in AAA Region 4, Rockmart, sitting at 2-2 after the big win over Central Carroll. However, Rockmart has losses to Chapel Hill, Harrelson. They still have to play Douglas, Best, Callaway, and Callaway. Callaway sitting atop at 4-0. Really, for Rockmart, you got to win the next 2 games against Douglas and Best, and then hope for the best against Callaway. Rockmart's could get in there. It's just tough to say. I see that they are probably number 3 or number 4 seed at best. Matt, do you think they can beat Douglas and Best?
If they can stay consistent, perhaps they can. I mean, Callaway, don't think that's going to happen, but if they can stay consistent, perhaps. But we've not really seen that down the line from Rockmart, so we'll see. I don't know.
Gotcha. Moving on to AA Region 7. Calhoun 4-0. Our projection, they're the number 1 seed. They're not going to lose again this year. Pepperell until the playoffs possibly. Pepperell 3-1. Still have to play Chattooga, Murray County, and Armurchie. I think Pepperell probably wins out on that, grabs the number 2 spot. Really, the number 3 and 4 spots are up for grabs, and Model, Coosa, Chattooga, Dade, and even Armurchie could have something to say about this. More than likely, it's Model and Coosa. They actually play this week. The winner of that game has the inside track to the number 3 seed. But if Chattooga, Dade, or Armurchie could pull an upset somewhere along the way, they might get in there. I'm projecting, I'm going to say it's going to be Calhoun, Pepperell, Coosa, and Model in that order, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Matt, what do you think?
Well, I don't know if this is a good thing or not, but I agree with you totally, because when you look at Chattooga and what they have left, they still have Pepperell, Dade, and Calhoun. They might beat Dade, but there's no way they're going to beat Pepperell or Calhoun. And then when you look at Armurchie, they still have Calhoun, Coosa, and Pepperell left. So they're in a very similar situation that Chattooga's in. I think those 2 teams are going to be knocked off. It's going to be tough last few weeks of the season for them. And then, like I say, Calhoun, Pepperell, Coosa, Model, definitely I agree with that.
The one game I see that could mix it, if Model loses to Coosa, and if Dade wins the rest of their games going into the Model game, the winner of the Model-Dade game gets the number 4 spot. If that happens. Now, if somebody knocks Dade off in the meantime, that should guarantee Model of 3 or 4, depending on how they do against Coosa. Again, we're throwing everything up in the air because we're not 100% sure. We're trying to crystallize the picture. One more region to talk about. That's Class A, Region 6A. Darlington is 3-0. They have games against Mount Zion and Southwest Atlanta Christian left. They will beat Southwest Atlanta Christian. And to be honest, even if they were to, well, no, I guess if they lost to Mount Zion and Mount Zion beat some good people, they would be second. I say Darlington wins out the next 2 and will play. I'm going to project Walker out of the other side of the bracket. The Darlington and Walker's undefeated on the season so far, that they will meet in the championship game. Matt, you say anything different?
No, man, I totally agree with everything you just said.
Gotcha. And one last one to talk about. I lied. In the ICSGA, Uni Christian, if they beat Young American Christian, they will get the number 2 seed in the playoffs. So obviously a big game for Uni Christian with that number 2 seed. It means more than likely, well, number one, they'll be at home November 3rd for the first round of the ICSGA playoffs. Right now, it looks like if everything holds, they would probably have a home rematch against Community Christian, who they beat 20-13 earlier in the season. I actually covered that game. That's a winnable game for Unity. Unity possibly in position, if they beat Young American Christian, to at least get to the semifinals of the ICSGA playoffs.
I agree with you totally, man. And the thing is you might be seeing history repeat itself this year in some ways. I mean, once these kids are at this stage of the game under Joe Curtis, he has them ready to go. And I think that was proven last week when they played against Covenant, won a close game. That was going to be a hard game to get up for for a lot of different reasons, and they were able to do it. So I don't know, man. I think anything is possible for Unity at this point.
Definitely so. That's a walk through what is kind of a murky playoff picture. It will be much clearer as the next couple of weeks go along, and we'll, of course, be bringing all of that to you on Friday night. Live scoring updates from our local games, articles, photos, videos, and, of course, the Gridiron Central Scoreboard Show coming to you right around midnight. We'll break down all of the key action, have the highlights. From Matt Davis, Kevin Myrick, and Austin Wiggins, I'm Jim Allred saying we'll see you on the sidelines.
Begin your future at Georgia Northwestern Technical College. We offer degrees, diplomas, and certificates in over 200 programs of study. Choose a career in business, health, industrial, or public service. With the flexibility of day, evening, and online classes at any of our 5 campus locations, getting your education at GNTC has never been more convenient. There are many financial aid options available, including student loans. Apply now. Georgia Northwestern Technical College. Your college, your town, your future.